Julie and Jose Carles from Bedford are 3 months into a unique multiple pregnancy. Their babies are developing in exceptional conditions. The pregnancy is of such a high risk that it represents a major challenge for the medical teams. Over the coming months, Julie and Jose will have to confront a series of dilemmas that will determine whether their babies will be born dead or alive. And history shows that these 4 babies only have a slim chance of survival. Jose and Julie are expecting quadruplets that have grown from a single egg. Known as monochorionic, they share the same placenta and sac and have a significantly higher risk of being stillborn or premature or born with birth defects. It's a pregnancy that's so rare it's shocked the medical world.
I think the doctor's face said it all, because his face completely went white and dropped. He'd never seen anything like it before either. And my initial fears were, we'd struggled for a year to get a baby, and now I was going to lose all of them, because that's what you immediately think. And he talked about all the risks and everything, and I was thinking there's no way I would be able to have 4 babies. How is that going to work?
I was at work and I got a phone call and Julie was hysterical, totally over the moon. Yeah, I'm pregnant. We've done it. And I was like, oh, right, have you still got the little stick? And she was like, yeah. So, well, obviously, when I come home, she was waiting outside the gate for me. This great big grin on her face.
But the joy soon turned to shock when the first ultrasound scan of her womb revealed something extraordinary. Julie was carrying identical quadruplets, but these quads were remarkable because they were sharing the same placenta.
I actually went into shock and my whole body started shaking, and of course I was crying because I was upset and I just couldn't believe this was happening to us. But I think over the next 24 hours and over the weekend, it all sort of sunk in and I got my head around it and accepted it. And then, of course, knowing that there was 4 babies in there, I wanted 4 babies.
Julie's referred to a centre of excellence for multiple births, Queen Charlotte's and Chelsea Hospital in London. She's placed in the care of one of the UK's top obstetricians, Professor Nick Fisk. Her pregnancy provides him with a unique challenge.
It's really impossible to give her an accurate statistic for the chance of 4 quads surviving intact and healthy. And that's just, there are a lot of monochorionic quadruplets that haven't made it. So I think she's really behind the 8 ball, and the odds are well less than 50% of having 4 intact quads.
33-year-old Jose already has a son by a previous marriage, but this is Julie's first pregnancy. At 38, getting pregnant was high on the agenda.
We'd planned our wedding for 2005 in April, so we knew that we wanted children, and it was decided, with Julie's age, that the sooner the better, really. So she came off the pill and we started trying.
Without any fertility aids, it took Julie a year to conceive. On average, 5 sets of quadruplets are born each year in the UK, but monochorionic quads are almost unheard of. There is only 1 other set of them alive in the world today. It will be a miracle if all 4 babies make it to the full 9 months of pregnancy.
We've got 3 major risks she faces. One is the risks to the baby, which are particularly premature labour, delivering far too early, such that the babies are at risk of dying from prematurity or having long-term brain injury. Her second major risk is those risks of having a single placenta, one of them not growing and dying inside the womb, affecting the others. And finally, there's the risks to Julie herself of having a huge womb with all those risks of pregnancy diseases like high blood pressure, preeclampsia, bleeding from behind the placenta, etc.
Conventional quads with 1 placenta each are usually born at least 9 weeks premature. But Julie's are in competition for food and oxygen from the same placenta, so have a high risk of being born even earlier.
You don't want to think about the fact that they're never going to be here. You picture 4 giggling little babies, basically.
In normal pregnancies, mother and baby are scanned only twice at 12 and 20 weeks, but Julie and Jose must come to London every week to check the babies are healthy and growing. Everyone knows these are 1 in a billion babies, but until they're born, they're referred to simply as A, B, C and D.
Here. This is C. We can always see very clearly.
Oh, yeah.
C's heartbeat. Head. And then this is...
The weekly checks show that all is well with the quads, but Mum and Dad are still to learn if they're having boys or girls. Professor Fisk's colleague, Dr. Keelan O'Donoghue, reveals all.
So, can you tell what they are yet? Because we've been waiting eagerly.
Okay, well, let me have a look. You know whatever one baby is,
Yeah.
they all are,
Yeah.
right, which makes my job a little easier. Okay. Head.
My son wants to know if he's got a football team.
Ah,
Or a netball
Or a
team.
netball
Or a netball team.
okay, fine. This baby's moving around quite a bit at the moment, so you
Yeah,
can see
it's
that.
just been kicking me.
Yeah, it's a heartbeat. Well, I can see two babies quite clearly, and they're girls.
Excellent. Oh, that's good. I'm pleased.
Oh dear, that's
I hope
what I
so.
was hoping for.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to have a pink household
Yeah.
now.
But their joy may be short-lived. The first in a series of difficult decisions must now be tackled. With multiple pregnancies, a reduction of embryos is often suggested. With all 4 girls sharing the same placenta, competition for nutrients is stiff, so a selective reduction results in the termination of one or more of the embryos so that the stronger ones survive.
She can continue with the quads with a much greater chance of risks than with a normal quad pregnancy because of the single placenta. She could look at the option of a reduction with a much greater chance of something going wrong and losing the lot of them because of the single placenta.
Their choice is stark: keep all 4 and any weaknesses in one of them puts them all at risk, or have a reduction and risk losing them all.
There was no way that we could pick 1 or 2 to lose. You know, it's, you know, there's 4 there. We want the 4. It would have been different if they could have pinpointed and said this one is severely disabled. You know, it's going to struggle. Then that's a different matter. And yes, then we would have discussed and the possibility of having a reduction. But there's 4 babies. How can you pick one of your own children to not be born into this world?
But just as they've made this difficult decision, they have to prepare themselves for terrible news.
I'm scared that they're going to say one of them's dead.
Julie and Jose Carles from Bedford are expecting identical quadruplet girls. This already high-risk pregnancy is complicated further by all 4 babies sharing just 1 placenta and sac. Known as monochorionic quads, they are so rare that only 1 other set survives in the world. Julie is only just 6 months into her pregnancy, and the health of one of the quads, known as baby A, is already causing alarm.
Their concern is the development of the baby, both in growth and brain and all that kind of stuff. So they want to monitor to make sure that that flow doesn't decrease any further.
Jose and Julie are on their way to Queen Charlotte's and Chelsea Hospital, 75 miles away in London. A centre of excellence in the care of multiple births, they've been having weekly checkups to monitor the growth of the quads. Everything has been going well until it's discovered that baby A is receiving less nutrients than her sisters, so a scan is scheduled as soon as Julie and Jose arrive. And Julie is fearing the worst.
I'm scared that they're going to say one of them's dead.
No, I'm not going to say that. I'll be daft.
Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'll have a quick look myself.
Registrar Dr. Keelan O'Donoghue details the condition of the quads. She'll only be certain the girls are alive when she can identify 4 beating hearts.
She doesn't perform for the camera. Okay, so I can see all 4 heartbeats. All
Excellent.
babies look like they're moving. So do you want me to just to show you? Okay, so baby A is lying down here in the lower part of the womb. And this is baby A's head, bone being white. So that's the skull. And baby A's heartbeat, spine of baby A. And this is baby B, who's just a little bit behind A, baby B's heartbeat. And this baby is lying quite over to one side. Baby C is more on your right-hand side. So this is the forehead, this is the lens of the eye, nose, mouth, the other eye. This baby's mouth. There. And then baby D is also across the top, but a bit more to your left-hand side, so
Oh, wow.
that way. Yeah. If you watch the back there, you'll see this baby is really kicking out. The feet are over here. I can feel them actually. The feet are over here kicking me. Okay. So this is a sideways or a sagittal view of baby D, so you can see the length of the baby's body. Whoa.
Yeah, I felt that.
One of the UK's leading experts in the care of multiple pregnancies, Professor Nick Fisk, is looking after these miracle babies. This pregnancy is just as much a challenge for him.
All 4 babies are in reasonable condition. We've had some slight concerns about the growth of 1 or 2 of them, where the baby's growth's not as strong as her sister's, and the blood flow's not quite as strong as we would expect. But that's a situation in these single placenta multiple pregnancies which can go on for several weeks before it gets worse. So we have some slight concerns, but the main issue here has just been the bulk inside the womb. You know, it's huge, it's ready to go pop.
Baby A and her 3 sisters are all okay. But because of the increased risk to baby A, Professor Fisk and his team have decided that Julie must stay in hospital for round-the-clock monitoring so that any further complications are picked up.
At least the results were positive.
Yeah,
today.
they're no worse than last week, which is good.
Which is good, yeah. I was dreading that.
It's a bit of a relief then, isn't it? Because we can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And that they were pleased that they were all okay and active and stuff.
See them 4 little heartbeats. That's
Yeah.
what I'm looking for straight away. As soon as she runs the scanner over, and you spot
they're all
them, but
beating
then you
quite well.
can relax a bit. Then. You can go home and sleep tonight now.
You can go home and sleep tonight. I'm sure I'll sleep because I'm tired, but
Yeah, so am I.
it's
Been
not
up
going to
early.
be. It's not going to be easy.
Right, I suppose I better leave you to it.
Okay.
Take the runs out.
No one can predict when Julie might go into labour, so Hosey will return home and wait for news.
I'll be in the morning.
I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Drive carefully.
I won't do.
All right.
See you later. I'm not coping that well being away from Julie. Her being in hospital and me being at home is very difficult. I go to work, I come home, go and visit Julie, but I keep the house running. But inside it's turmoil. It's, she's my backbone. This house is a home when she's here. Without her here, it's just an empty shell.
First week in hospital has not been too bad. I've settled in now. It was quite hard to start with, especially being apart from my husband and being away from my home and my comforts and in a strange place.
While Julie counts the days, Jose is counting boxes. With 4 new babies on the way, the Carles family need a bigger house.
It's been a nice home for a couple of years. Close to the town, river, pubs. Yeah, it's been really nice living here, but it's just not big enough now. My wife seems to have far too many clothes. And I'm sure she'll moan at me for the way I'm doing it, but she's not here.
The move to the new house has kept Jose busy for a week, and just when he was least expecting it, he receives a call from the hospital. Julie is having contractions. Going into labour so soon is what everyone had feared. Jose has driven through the night to be by Julie's side, and Professor Fisk is not far behind.
I'm exhausted.
Can I have a look at the trace? I just want to see exactly how often we've been having the contractions. Have they abated at all, Julie, or they're just the same?
They abated for a while, but they seem to have picked up in the last hour and a half. But they're very short, they're just quite often.
Okay.
Just more
But
intense.
and then
You
down
felt them,
here.
didn't you? So can I just pop a hand on your tummy?
Yes,
if
of
that's
course.
all right? Just because they still look like they're coming quite frequently on that trace. And you don't have one at the moment.
No.
Do you just wait and let me know when you do?
Yeah, sure.
Just because you're such a time bomb, I think it would be worth me examining you again, just to check, before we start the night, that nothing sort of snuck away, got away from us during the day.
It's very tender down there.
Yeah. Because, unless we were to deliver you now, the plan's definitely to keep everything quiet till tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So that's
Julie's still only 6.5 months pregnant, far too soon for these quads to survive if they were to be delivered now.
Paula?
Yes, sir.
So Julie is given drugs to slow the contractions and steroids to help development of the baby's lungs. But what she really needs is more time.
You've had these now for about 14 hours, and it's very brave of you to put up with them and things, and I know it must be tough, but they actually haven't done an awful lot to the neck of the womb, and that's the ultimate arbiter we use for what's happening.
Okay.
So, if you're 34 weeks, we just go ahead and deliver you, but you're not. And, we really do have an increased survival of still about 1% or so a day, each day at the moment. So each day does count.
The drugs are starting to do their job and reduce the contractions. If Julie and the girls can hold on, their chances of survival vastly improve.
I'm hoping today will bring some calm to the situation. The contractions will cease, and all the drugs they're giving her will do their job, and things will get back to normal, hopefully for another couple of weeks. But we'll have to wait and see what happens today.
Next morning, Professor Fisk returns to assess Julie's condition.
Hi there.
Hi, yeah.
I hear you got some sleep.
A few hours, yeah.
This is at the moment, is it?
So it's calmed right down.
But that's a huge difference, isn't it?
This morning it was 1 every 10 minutes.
Right. Okay.
But only uterus, the whole uterus just sort of tensed.
So that's only till about 8:30. So recently it's been fine.
Calmed right down.
Remember that little test we did? We took a swab.
Yeah.
That is a clever little thing that tells us whether you're in real premature labour and there's a big chance of delivering, or it could just be a few sort of, irritable contractions and an episode that's going to settle down. That was normal, suggesting that we would go on, and actually that's what's happened.
Yeah.
I'm not hoping you don't deliver now at 27 weeks,
Yeah.
all right? Because you're 27 plus 3 today, aren't
Yeah.
you? So,
Extra day.
that last week's made a huge difference because, we said survival, is 50-50 at 25 weeks, a little bit higher at 26, but when we get to 27, 28, it's about 88% nationally.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if we mentioned this to you. As we know the sex of the babies, and obviously they're all the same, being little girls is actually quite important. Did you know that the survival figures are about a week to 2 weeks better if they're girls than they're boys? At all stages of life medically, women are stronger than men, and particularly at this stage.
I always knew that.
Yeah,
But
all
what-
women know this. But,
But that's just a proven thing, is it, that girls
it
tend
is.
to survive?
So the things that work out the survival risks are what sex you are and how big you are, but the most important still is how many weeks you are.
Yeah.
So we've got into 27, but it'd be good to get 28 and 29 even. She could deliver tonight. I mean, that wouldn't surprise us. But I think now I'm of the view that it's more likely we'll get into next week. I could be wrong. And if we get in through next week without any further problems, we could even go several weeks. But these things have a tendency to come back.
After 16 hours, the contractions do eventually subside, and for now, the chances of Julie going into labour are over. So much so, she can think about other things.
You're going to get me some food?
Yeah. Do you want chips, chocolate,
I want
pasties, pies?
I mean, if you can find chips with salt and vinegar, that would be great.
Right.
If not, then sandwiches, crisps and chocolate. But don't come back without any chocolate, because I won't be happy.
Julie and Jose go back to their routine, with Julie confined to the hospital and Jose commuting to see her when he can. The quads get another week of vital development, and there's still 11 weeks to go when Professor Fisk calls a meeting to deliver a significant update. The quad's growth is giving the professor cause for concern for the health of baby A once again.
We're getting increasingly concerned about number A. So we've got the weights today. We can show you in C and D as before are fine. We're not worried about them. They're quite fat, actually. They're about 1 kilogram each, all right? But B was always slowing down a little bit, and that B's probably just stayed growing a little bit more slowly, just above the lower limit of the reference range here. You know, it's okay, but not huge and not nearly as big as her sisters. But A has almost not grown in the last 2 weeks. We have to be just a little bit cautious because A is the one that's right in front, and it is a little bit more tricky to measure. We did it several times there to give you as accurate estimate as we can.
I mean, we spoke, didn't we? And because, I mean, you know, obviously we haven't got the knowledge of, like yourselves, but because we've made it past the 28 weeks, we're sort of in agreement that if to not let that one go, we'd rather take a risk now and deliver all 4 than sort of say, right, that one's not doing so well and
take the risk of it losing.
Losing, you know, we'd rather give them all an equal chance if it was stood more of a chance outside than in.
It's not enough that we just want to deliver you for fun at this stage.
No,
you know, our job's always just this complicated thing of balancing the risks of them outside versus the risks of them inside.
So in terms of baby A, your main concern at the moment is whether that will get worse?
Yes, and it might not. It might stay like that for 3 or 4 weeks, but I'm not sure we can go on that long. You know, but certainly a couple of weeks is what we're looking at the moment.
Professor Fisk is desperate for Julie and Jose to hang on for at least 2 more weeks, and he knows that while babies B, C and D will gain vital weight, baby A may not grow any more. But Julie and Jose are determined to give them all the same fighting chance of survival.
It's, I guess, a fine balancing act between whether they keep going or see how we get on. I mean, it's... they're going to scan you again on Monday, which will be 29 weeks, and see what happens then. But I guess they'll advise us what they feel is best, but between me and you, ultimately we feel that each baby deserves as much a chance as the other one, and if it was a case of, well, that one's not doing so well, but maybe we'll keep going, then it's not really an option for us. You know, it's our emotions within, and we're not going to, you know, we'd rather have them all delivered and all have an equal chance at life, you know.
But this life or death decision is taken out of everyone's hands by the results of more tests. Julie and Jose Carles are expecting rare identical quadruplet girls. Known as monochorionic, they are so rare that there is only one other set surviving in the world. One of them, known as baby A, has stopped growing, and the medical team face a life or death dilemma: hold on for more time and risk baby A dying inside the womb, or deliver them all now 11 weeks premature and risk the life of all 4. Since the discovery that baby A is at risk, Julie and her quads are closely observed for any change in condition.
Yesterday we had a scan. We've been having scans every day to check on things like the blood flows and stuff, to monitor them more closely. And yesterday's scan showed that baby A's flow, which had been having a problem, had changed. slightly, and that's the sign they were looking for. A change denotes you're going into the next dimension, which means it could be a decline. So on that signal, that's basically what the professor was looking for in order to make a decision as to whether we had the babies before the weekend or after. So the babies have made the decision for him, so we're having them today.
Julie and her special little girls have been under the care of a leading expert in multiple pregnancy, Professor Nick Fisk.
Yesterday, there was a deterioration in the blood flow to quad A from the placenta. It was only early, but it was enough that it indicates quite a heightened risk of the baby dying inside the womb if we went on for several days to a week. So that's the reason for doing this today.
These rare quads are known as monochorionic because they share the same placenta. The girls are fighting each other for oxygen and blood, and the smallest, baby A, is losing. So the professor is taking the risk of delivering them today, even though they're 11 weeks premature.
It's quite complex decision-making. We have to weigh in mind the interests of each different baby at each gestational week, both in terms of its survival and in terms of brain damage.
I changed it from somebody else. This is it.
The main issue, of course, is the babies, but from Julie's point of view, delivering quads is unusual. It has to be by caesarean section because of the number of babies, but there is always a risk of bleeding at the time of the operation, and that's worse in twins than a singleton, and worse in triplets, and particularly high in quads.
First, Julie receives an epidural or spinal block. Drugs are injected into her spine, which numbs her body below the chest. She'll be awake throughout the delivery, and Jose will not be leaving her side. For Professor Fisk and his team, the birth presents them with a unique challenge.
So this is quite a logistic nightmare to do this. I mean, we have to be prepared, particularly from the paediatrician's point of view, 4 babies below 30 weeks, all being delivered within seconds of each other. So we have to have 4 senior paediatricians, 4 neonatal nurses, a lot of people in the room. I mean, when you think we have to have 4 times as many midwives to catch the babies, the anaesthetists need to be prepared. We've got the 4 sets of paediatricians, as well as the TV crews.
Ideally, Professor Fisk wants to deliver baby A first, as she will be the smallest and in need of the most attention. But she is lying at the bottom of the uterus, and so it's unlikely that she'll be first out. There are 27 staff in theatre. While trying to make this delivery feel as normal as possible for the parents,
Everyone ready to go? Nigel, you happy? Yes.
everyone else is on high alert.
Are you ready?
The last set of monochorionic quads delivered in the world were all born with life-threatening complications.
This is the point at which we start talking about holidays we're planning, twin buggies, that sort of thing.
So we're just dissecting down through the layers now, towards the muscle. So it's just the sort of, the layers over the womb. We haven't quite got into the tummy yet, we'll be there shortly. A little bit of tugging now. Okay. All right, a lot of tugging. How's that?
Sorry.
So we're just getting ready to make the incision in the womb. The womb's very, very thin because of the quadruplets. Just do it very gently. Oh, there's the fluid from one of the babies. Okay, look at that, we have a little arm. Jose, stand up, please. All right, whoever that is coming out. I think that's D. Okay. Now get this one. Get your hand out of there. I don't want to stand there. Look, stop it.
We have a knee and a leg.
There we go. Just gently. Pull that leg down like that. There we go. Here we go. Very gently. A little bit of pressure here. There we go. Oh, look at that. So if you clamp that, she looks great. You can touch the baby just for a second now. There we go.
One plastic clamp then.
Beautiful, okay. And she's just starting to climb.
Baby D is first out and taken away by the paediatric team.
This one is good.
Although the quads all share one large sac, they have each been developing within their own smaller protective sac made of a thin membrane.
This, I think, is C, coming up bottom first again. Here's an arm of C.
Out of sight of Mum and Dad, paediatric teams work quickly to keep the newborn baby D alive. She has oxygen tubes fed into her lungs to help her breathe and is wrapped in plastic to retain her body heat.
Just the head coming gently.
Back in theatre, and baby C is next to be born.
That's a bottom trying to come out. Get back again. Wait for your turn.
That's B trying to...
Yeah, that's better. Let your sister out first.
Okay.
Baby B trying to get in on the act.
Scissors to me.
She's also in good condition. You can just have a second's worth of touching, okay? Before I give the baby straight to the pediatrician.
Plastic clamps.
She's lovely. There she goes, straight to the pediatrician. Thank you very much.
Gauge clamps again.
Miss B. Arm.
Then little baby A makes her appearance. It's the baby that everyone had been worried about. She is much smaller than her sisters, but she is moving and she's breathing.
Brief touch just for a second. She looks... There you go. Now she's a bit smaller, you can see. This is B coming now, I think.
We normally have stopped by now, I have to say.
Who's keeping count?
No more in there, is there?
Jose, do you want to stand up? Here we go. Now this is the only one coming out the right way. Please, yeah.
Can you put presentation as well? So
Okay.
Here we go.
Baby B is the last out. She was right at the back of the womb by Julie's spine.
She's lovely too, so they're all, you know, alive. Scissors.
Watch the cord.
Touch me.
Thank you.
See her starting to cry? It's lovely.
Congratulations.
Well done.
All 4 babies weigh less than 3 pounds, well below average. Baby A is the smallest, at just over 1.5 pounds. The girl's lungs have only developed to the size of a thumbnail. While Julie and Jose can at least celebrate the birth of their unique quadruplets, this is only the beginning of the journey. The first 48 hours of the quad's life will be crucial. They've been born premature and fighting for their lives. If they survive, it will be weeks before anyone can tell if they've suffered any harm.
We'll take her upstairs just to the breathing tube, but we may well be able to take that out very shortly afterwards.
Jose gets just one opportunity to see his 4 daughters before they are placed in incubators and taken to the special care unit. Mum and Dad will not see them again until their condition is stable.
Okay, that's fine.
These 1 in a billion quadruplets have been kept alive for the past 7.5 months by a single placenta. Ironically, it's been the biggest threat to their survival, but it's also been their only means of life support.
So remember that the job of the placenta is to feed the baby. It does everything in terms of gives the baby oxygen, it gives the baby nutrients, and it disposes of all the waste products. So it's absolutely crucial. And obviously with 4 babies, there's a very large placenta, although it's just 1 placenta because it's identical and shared between the babies. A huge placenta, each with the 4 cords with the number of clips on indicating the order in which we delivered. So 3 clips was the third baby to come out. Now, the very small one, which we labelled A because it was closest to the cervix, you can see here it's in its own little sac, and this is the tiny thin membrane between each of the sacs that indicates that they're identical quads. So this placenta here, leading to this cord, you can see how thin this cord is. It's very runted and hasn't got much nutrients in it at all. And then B, which was the baby we delivered last, you'll see the cords rather similar, which are without much fat in the cord, but it's just a little bit bigger proportionately than A. And then the other 2 cords, you can see how these 2 have a much bigger share of the placenta. These are quite big, juicy cords, indicating there was plenty of oxygen and blood flow going through them.
It's now clear that baby A could have died inside her mother at any time. The decision to deliver them today was the right one.
If we go too early, there's the risks that one of the babies might not make it or get a serious complication, even brain damage from being delivered too early. On the other hand, we leave it too late, one or sometimes more could end up dying inside the womb. So it's pretty finely balanced. But I think we're all pretty chuffed actually with this one, because we feel to the day we've delivered her at the right time.
Hasn't sunk in that I'm a mum yet. I don't think it will until I see all 4 of them together. I mean, I still find it amazing that we've created 4 human beings. And when I saw them and you see it's a human being, you know, it's just, I just can't get over that. It's just totally amazing.
Later that night, the first pictures of these miracle quads are taken. Baby D, called Ellie, is over 1 kilogram in weight. Baby C, Georgina, is bigger still. Baby B, named Holly, is small at less than 900 grams, but baby A, Jessica, is just 770 grams. That's 1.5 pounds.
They all seem to be doing great. The weights are better than what we thought they were going to be.
Actually grown, haven't they?
Yes, so they've all done very, very well, and they're very confident upstairs that things are going to keep going well.
They've got 4 lovely, healthy children that we would expect to grow up intact and completely normal. That's absolutely brilliant. Of course, you know, as it goes on day by day, by the time we got to the decision to deliver, I was pretty confident that we might be all right. But there's still a chance when we delivered that 1 or even more of them might not have made it, have got a complication in the nursery, like a bleed inside the baby's brain or an overwhelming infection, a big gut problem. So, you know, until they've had a good few weeks in the nursery, you're really not out of the woods at all.
The Carless quads are just 3 days old. They all weigh less than 2.5 pounds and their lungs are barely functioning. They'll spend the first few weeks of their lives in the special care baby unit until they're out of danger. Knowing that their babies are in the best possible hands, Julie and Jose must reluctantly leave their little girls to return home. Until they can hold them, Mum and Dad are helpless, while machines keep their babies alive. But they'll be making the 100-mile round trip 3 times a week to be with their tiny miracles.
You know, it's going to be difficult leaving today, but I think when I, have spent 24 hours recovering myself, come back a bit stronger, it makes life a bit easier. At the end of the day, we're only an hour and a half away, so I can come any time, in the middle of the night if I want to.
Weeks of anxiety lie ahead for Jose and Julie. If the quads can put on weight and continue to support their own breathing, they will be well enough to go home. That new home is almost 50 miles away in Hertfordshire.
You all right? Good. Are you ready to go? Right?
Julie and Jose make the journey to London whenever they can to see their little girls, but leaving them in hospital each night is always difficult.
Some days, driving away from the hospital, I'd cry because it's just really, really hard. Whereas other days I'm stronger because I know I'm going to see him again the next day. But I don't think anything can prepare you for it. And I would say that it's probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
The nursery remains empty. It could be months before the Carless sisters come home. Julie and Jose Carles have become proud parents of 4 baby girls. Known as monochorionic, they are a rare form of identical quads. Born around 9 weeks premature, these 1 in a billion babies have all survived the first month. Holly, Jessica, Georgina and Ellie have put on weight and their lungs have developed so they no longer need intensive care and have now been moved to a local special baby care unit. So near, yet so far from their home.
I think if it was just one baby, you know, most mothers can relate to the fact that immediately you can start becoming a mother and doing all those things, whereas I've not been able to. I just get 3 or 4 hours in the hospital every day, and it's just great to see them, but I hate leaving, and I feel guilty that I'm not there when they wake up and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be really, really nice to just relax and be a proper mum.
But at least being in the local special baby unit means Mum and Dad can visit much more frequently.
The girls are doing really, really well. They're now in a local hospital, 15 minutes drive, which is brilliant because it means I can go and see them every night. When Jose comes home from work, we just drive down the road for 15 minutes and I can see them for a couple of hours every day, which is great. They're put on over £1 pound since their birth weight, so their weight is coming on really well now. They're all on formula. And Ellie, who's the biggest, I've been told today, is going to be in a cot rather than an incubator, which is brilliant, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. Every day I express milk for the girls because it's got antibodies in, and I take it to the hospital, about 120 ml, 150 ml a day. I'm not getting much, but every little bit helps. Although now they're on formula, so they're not going to be needing it now, which is great, because I was never going to be breastfeeding them anyway, so but every little bit helps, so I take some every day.
The girls' lungs are still too small and weak to suck a bottle or a nipple, so they are fed via a tube into their stomach.
Right, 22 ml you said, yeah?
10 and 2.
Yeah.
This method of feeding has worked. It's Dad's job to keep on top of the baby's weights.
Do you want the weight check?
Yes, please, sorry.
Ellie's £3.14.
Wow.
Georgina's £3.14.
So she's caught up quite a bit then.
Yeah. Holly's £3.2. And Jess is £2.12.
Oh wow, that's really good, isn't it? Yeah, that's excellent.
Thank you.
Wow, so Holly's over £3.
Yeah.
Even baby A, the quad no one thought would make it, has gained weight, but they're still all dramatically underweight. All of them are now breathing unaided most of the time, but as a precaution, tubes in their nose deliver oxygen by continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP. After 4 weeks of waiting, Jose gets to hold his daughter Georgina for the first time.
Speechless, totally speechless. Just... She's not as wriggly. As Ellie was really, really wriggling for the last week or so. It seemed really agitated. But now she's had the CPAP off, she's quietened down. But Georgina's been sort of fairly quiet, really, and growing. She's now caught up with Ellie. So just sort of taking a back seat a bit and piling on the weight.
After 7 months of a traumatic pregnancy and weeks of intensive care, Mum and Dad can finally start believing that their miracle quads are coming home.
So looking forward to it. Really taking a month off work and settling the family into a routine. Can't wait to wake up with them, and whether it be 3 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, I just want them home.
We just want to get on with it so we can be a proper family. I can be a proper mum, and there's not a hospital room and beeping machines and all that kind of stuff. It's more natural environment.
The quads are now 8 weeks and 5 days old. It's the day that no one thought would ever happen. The Carles sisters are on their way home.
You've got your red books, you've got your... Yeah, I've got a red book. You've got our children. That's important. Got your drugs. got the drive, got the feet chart, got the feet chart to use. Yeah.
As one chapter closes on the lives of these unique sisters, another one opens for the Carlis family.
It was absolutely fantastic.
Not many people can say that they've ever done this, you know, and I feel kind of, I suppose it's like we feel blessed, or you know, that we've been privileged to go through something like this, and I'm just looking forward to every minute of it, really.
The decision to deliver the quads turned out to be the right one, and the man who took that decision can now breathe a sigh of relief.
You can deliver, which is easy, or you can not, and you always take some risks, because if one dies inside the womb, it's your fault. If there's a problem from prematurity, it's the paediatrician's fault. But you have to be very careful not to let that sway you, that out of expediency you deliver too early. Are these decisions easy? No. Do I lay awake at night worrying about it? Sometimes, yes.
Sleep could also be an issue in the Carlis household.
Got our work cut out, but I can smell more than one of them. So, yeah, it's just a matter of getting on with it now and enjoying every moment.
It's been a long journey, and the Carlis family is at last at home. 9 weeks ago, these beautiful babies were fighting for their lives. Baby A, now known as Jessica, had days or perhaps hours to live, and only time will tell whether or not these 1 in a billion babies are hiding any mental disability. But for now, it's enough that Britain's identical quads are all alive and kicking.